Welcome back to the Momentum Podcast. This is Dre Muhammad, and I'm here with a special guest, a guest that I am very happy to have here, as well as for a lot of people to get to know. She has done a phenomenal job of doing what she's doing, starting up, and we brought her here because I think she's going to be a key element in a lot of people's development and just the ability to go to college and kind of finding what that looks like. And so here we have Janae, and she's going to introduce herself a little bit more and talk to you about what she does. But I'm very excited because she's going to add phenomenal value to this community and communities outside of this area. So, Janae, can you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background?
Absolutely. First, I want to say that's a phenomenal introduction, so thank you. I am Janae McCullough-Boyd. I am founder and CEO of More Than Athletics, LLC. We are a college counseling firm focused on student athletes, and so our mission is to create an academic and recruiting game plan for active families. And really what that means is that we're going to find the best fit school for student athletes that is academically and that as well as recruiting. So the end goal is to make sure that the student is happy with where they're going and find the best fit for them on their journey.
And this is really important, and I'm super excited. I know our staff is as well, from Lawrence to Antoine to just our staff in general, the organization, because a lot of the misperception that exists in the market today is that if you train at Traction, you automatically get a scholarship. And as a founder of Traction, I want to put that narrative away. I don't want people to think that you automatically get a scholarship because that puts a lot of pressure on us to put you in that position. Although we do focus on development and opportunity, you come alongside and you start your own entity through experience. And so, can you talk to us about the experience that you had because the recruiting process it's an animal. So it's really intimidating to go into, but you did something and you took some pain bodies that you had in the recruiting process and you formed MTA. And so, can you talk to us about how that came about? Because it's going to be more than just a name. It's going to be an actual value to a lot of young athletes and families.
Yes, so I was one of those families that just assumed that, we train at Traction, so it's going to create, opportunities on the recruiting and getting us ready. And what you do completely adds value on getting student athletes ready to compete. But not realizing that there's a whole nother academic element to it, and then you have to get exposure on the recruiting side. So for my sons, recently I just went through this process with my oldest, and I quickly realized when we started the process, it was back in, I would say, September and October, and I was like, okay, first of all, how do we get your name out there? We started contacting his high school coach and saying, do you know anybody? But I quickly realized that this is a business.
Can you repeat that again?
This is a business.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And so, and there's processes and strategies to this. And if anyone's familiar with the business world, it is really built on relationships. And so not having those relationships can really put you behind the eight ball.
Yeah.
So I knew with him, he wanted to play, so that was our number one goal. First was academics, but second, then we needed to find a school where you could play. And once we achieved those goals, then we kept refining the process to figure out, okay, what level? And going down that path of, okay, now we have several schools. What is the best school for him? And so it was a very emotional process that I think people don't realize that it is, because that's a lot of pressure for a 17-year-old kid. So we just kind of fumbled through the process, and he ultimately found his best school. But originally, it was self-taught through that process.
Yeah. And your son, the oldest one, Jonathan, was a player that came in and who had D1 potential,
Absolutely.
but didn't necessarily fall into that opportunity. And we can talk about, COVID and all that stuff that did exist and happen that kind of hurt a lot of individuals. I think they say that the percent of players that signed previous years, it decreased. And so a lot of players like Jonathan and other players like a Mason Engler or Cam Hedgecock, those dudes fell into situations that are still good situations, but it wasn't probably, when you initially started the process, a desired position. And so you went through the process. There were some emotional, recruiting is emotional, so there were some emotional things that you had to put into it. But then what you did was you took time out and you really studied the process and you looked at what needs to be done strategically. And a lot of people don't see it as a business. And so I think the approach towards it is not necessarily within that scope because they don't view it that way anyways. And so you seen it as a business, and then you took your experiences and created a business. And I can tell you from personal experience that I haven't went through the process or had an athlete go through the entire process, of which I would recommend from maybe 8th grade when they are going into high school or transitioning to the high school phase, and then going from there, starting with MTA and then learning it as they go. Because the last thing we want to do is learn after the fact.
Absolutely.
We want to learn before. So, but I can say that sitting down and going through what she does conceptually, principally, and the roadmap that you've set aside, somebody that's been in this for 8-9 years, I'm looking at it like, where were you at? 8-9 years ago. You come now, and she adds tremendous value from a standpoint that, like when we speak about attraction, our whole focus is to develop individuals, human-wise, athletically, and then player-wise. But then we want to set people in the right position to be prepared for opportunities that do exist when it comes to the competitive aspect. When it comes to the academic, I know that academics is really important. I'm a class checker. It's like, what's the grades? But I'm not really willing to give so much time into another niche that you have identified as it relates to how can we walk you through the academic? How can we walk? So you've done that. And so the niche for MTA is a wonderful niche, and I think that she's going to add, again, tremendous value to what we do as an organization, and really any athlete and parent that wants to be educated on the process of recruiting, right? And when it comes to the academic, because so much money is left on the table academically, and I think when it's left on the table, you get put in a situation where it's like, oh, well, I only have to pay this amount when you could have easily found this and squeezed out that amount. You're going in and you're saying, I'm with you in this, and I'm going to help you get the most money out of this.
Absolutely. I don't guarantee that you will end up with an athletic or academic scholarship. I want to make that clear. But if we start the process early and you put in the work, because it takes hustle and grit.
It does.
Then your outcome will be more positive than if you started late in the game and you did not have the grades. And so I can only stress to student athletes, I can't stress enough how much grades are important, because that creates greater opportunity in the amount of attention you can get from different schools, the wide range. And then also, it's just more attractive to a college coach when you have the grades, because they know that they only have a certain pot of money. And so if you have great grades, you can potentially get full academic, and then that college coach was like, great, I don't have to spend my athletic dollars, or he can only spend a portion, and so that makes you very, very attractive as well.
Now I'm gonna say something, because I think this is important for a lot of people to understand as I ask these questions, and for you guys to know more about what she's doing. The difference between what we do as an organization and what high schools do, one, I want to make sure that it's clear that we are a third party. We are not the priority. Like, we're not the focus, but we are a complement to what high schools provide.
Yes, an additional resource.
Additional resource. So when it comes to player development, athlete development, we got to deal with the truth of situations, and we got to deal with the facts of situations in order for us to make a better decision in our children's process. And one of the things that separates what we do as a third entity from the school, and why I think it's a compliment, is because school's focus is really outside in. And what I mean by that is that the school's priority and focus in sports is to win. Like, let's not shy away from that reality.
Absolutely.
And if I am a athletic director, I will want my focus to be winning. Now, obviously, there's little tweaks or whatnot when it comes to what should be important or whatnot, but overall, you want to have the school having success in many sports. And so what that does for us as an organization is it puts us in a situation where, because it's outside in and they're focused on winning, then what we want to do is we want to help players develop as much as possible so that when they get to that situation, it's easier for those coaches to win. And so I want to clearly distinguish between what we do and what schools do, because oftentimes, sometimes we can think, if I'm training at this program here at school, why do I need this other program? And coaches don't have the time for them to really develop like they could.
Right.
And so I'm saying all that to say, how are you as a third entity or an outside entity different, and how can you provide quality service and value and complement the academic advisor that already exists in the school?
That's a great question. Like you said, the resources at the school level is extremely limited. Everybody has a goal. The coaches are to win, and a lot of them are educators and are dealing with different things, and they only have a limited amount of time.
Yeah.
And then you look at the academic advisors in the high school, and if you go to a larger school, they're dealing with around 500 kids. And
Yeah.
With those kids, they come with very many different needs. And so, they're dealing with scheduling, they are dealing with social issues. And so what I do is just then help support your student. I provide individual attention. So, what you do, what Antoine, what LB does, you add that added value to that student, individual attention. And that's what I do. Every kid is different. Every family is different. And so we look at the individual transcripts. We look at what their career path wants to be. We look at the financial situation of the families.
Yeah.
And so we guide that process by grade, because there are certain things that you need to do in order for this to be successful and get the greatest outcome. So really what I do, I'm just an added resource and an additional advocate for your student. I don't work to compete against the high school counselors. I am in addition. It is truly a partnership. And the whole focus is the student athlete.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you separated that and made it clear as to you are a complement you're working with, not against. Because sometimes when when you deal with a child, and I've seen this quite a bit, is sometimes in our emotional state, we can put this program in competition with this program. And really, there's good coming from both. And we just got to figure out what that good is and how we can connect them to make it work. And so even when it comes to what you do and what we do, I'm not oblivious to the fact that we don't do that. And so to me, there is not a competitive situation, because what you're doing is actually adding value. And the challenge is that when organizations or programs and businesses are doing something, what is the underlying focus? Like, the thing that I appreciate about what you're doing is that you've taken the pain bodies of recruiting and you've seen the passion that you had in it and you turn it into a product. And you are doing it genuinely because you see that certain parents or a lot of parents go through what you went through, and not a lot of them have the desire to take the focus and to make it into a business, and then not only that, leave a comfortable situation that you are already in, and then say, I'm jumping out on faith and this is what I'm gonna do. So it has to be a huge passion for you to do certain things like this.
Yes. So my husband, after the process with Jonathan, he was like, you know what? You really have enjoyed this process. Do you think you would ever like to do something like this?
A little too much.
And so, you know how us wives do sometimes. We give you the look like, really? And so I just kind of let it sit for a few weeks. And then you and I had a conversation. It wasn't even about this, but it was about, my children training, and we had some discussions. And I said, hey, I'm kind of thinking about X, Y, and Z. And you said, oh my goodness, that would be great because most families think that's what we do. And I said, okay. And then a few days later, I swear it was divine intervention. I couldn't write quick enough. I couldn't research. And I was like, this is really a thing.
Yeah, it is.
And so my background is 20 years of accounting. And I've worked at several public accounting firms. And for the last 11 years, have been a tax accountant for a Fortune 500 company. But my passion has always been to help young people. So I've sat on several boards here in town, volunteered, and so yes, this just seemed like a perfect fit. And going through the process and talking to other families, athletes, non-athletes, and we're like, going to college and sending your kid to college is a huge beast. And so this was definitely something that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this on and run with it.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's just truly been a blessing, everything that's happened in the last 2 months.
And that conversation was a conversation that when you mentioned it to me, I knew right then and there, because I hear so often about the academic phases and what needs to be done. And I have to be honest with parents, it's like, stay above a 3.0. Like, that's my advice, right? That's
not all you got to do.
Stay above a 3.0. But and you're right, that's not all that you need to do to get to a certain point. So when you shared that idea with me, it was like, it was a relief. It was a burden that was taken off of me, because that allows us to focus on what we're good at. And what we're good at is the relationship with the children, the development of the children, and providing opportunities for the children. And even when it comes to recruiting, we have really good relationships and strong relationships with a multitude of schools and coaches. But at the same time, those schools, they recruit across the country. And so we can't get every single child the scholarship that they want, because I don't believe that we can get them. It's all, school dynamic, film. Coaches have to like you. You have to meet certain measurables. All of that stuff matters in this. But now when you come on, what you're doing is you're alleviating the burden of us having to think, or us having to allow people to be misled and thinking that, look, we can help you get all the scholarships that you want. And so you don't only service football players, you service what it seems like no matter what type of athlete comes in, you service all.
Yes. In this journey, this quick journey, I took an 11-part series course on student-athlete advising. And the company that I did it with, they are rock stars in this field, and have been doing it for 30-plus years. And so these are proven strategies that will go across the board with any sport. And because recruiting is recruiting, although, you have to form the relationships in the prospective sports, but the method and the process of contacting the coaches, that is the same throughout. And so not only, yes, my focus is student athletes, but the academic piece can be applied to any college-bound student as well.
Absolutely. And so there you hear it. She can do any athlete, any sport. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that Traction is deemed as a football organization. We are not just a football organization. We're so much more than just a football organization. We just happen to have a great deal of football players that come through, and I would say that's the bread and butter. We have a lot of coaches that specialize in the football realm, but we work with basketball players. We work with female athletes. We work with soccer players. We work with baseball players, obviously more in the athletic realm, but to know that, okay, I don't have to be a football player for us to be a part of MTA allows you, and the process, again, are principally the same, but there's obviously some differentiators in regards to how you may handle the seasons as to which one is being recruited, one is off, and things like that. But going to, speaking on the boys, just going to the boys, obviously you have some really, some young, good men that you raised, you and the father raised, and the family has raised, but just kind of watching them go through the process and seeing the first one as really the example or the sample that you had to go through your experience with recruiting. How much easier is it now to help the younger one, Jackson, now that you already went through with Jonathan?
It has, so we're just starting the process, and the ideal student is to start the middle of that sophomore year. I mean, we can certainly start before, and you can start later, but you'll be catching up like I did with Jonathan. But it's really more relaxed, and we're not scrambling. So really going through a priority analysis. What is really important to you? Is it, Ivy League academics or just really competitive? Is it, what type of athletics? At what division are you looking at? Or what division are you inclined to be able to play as far as your talent?
Yeah.
Also, geography. Do you want something out west, Midwest, or southeast? What is your range of school? Do you want something small or large? So really, it is now we're at the point where I can focus on what is truly his priorities, and we have the time to really look at. We'll create a player profile, target initially 65 to 70 schools, and really just look at what is important to him versus with Jonathan. I'm like, okay, we're behind the eight ball, so we really have to narrow our focus.
Absolutely.
Doing it earlier, we can broaden our focus and change the trajectory as needed. So,
how long do you think that this process would you recommend for athletes to go through? Because for me, when it comes to training or when it comes to our organization, we would say that ideally we would like to get players in here when they're in seventh grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, not necessarily to commit long term, but to start being exposed to what it is that we do, and then get prepared for the transition, because those years collapse really quick.
Right.
And so how long would you recommend, obviously until a scholarship is secure or the money is secure, or what the children would say to the till they secure the bag, is what they would say. But how long would you recommend somebody to be a part of the program in order for them to get the most out of it, or maybe be relaxed, like you said that you are with Jackson right now?
I definitely can start with freshmen, and that is really high level. We're looking at your interest and taking different surveys to find out what type of learner you are. But I don't do a lot extensively with freshmen, but you can certainly start. The prime is starting your sophomore year.
Okay.
So really, I would say, especially with football players, let's start before the school year so we can get things in place, because we will start rocking and rolling here at the end of football season. And so that is the prime time for us to really plan out your academics, and then get familiar with and get comfortable with what showcases you need to focus on.
Absolutely.
And how do you talk to college coaches, and making sure that we still have a couple years left to make sure that you're NCAA and NAIA eligible. So when you go to plan your junior and senior year schedules, you can make sure that you're taking the correct courses. And if we need to get you additional help, whether that be tutoring or what that may be, we can, do that in a timely fashion. You can't do that when, you're right before your senior year.
Yeah, you gotta rush. What would you recommend because oftentimes players are looking for the D1 scholarship, and then once you get the D1 scholarship, a lot of players think that it's over. It's like, I got the scholarship, it's a wrap, I'm good. But there's opportunities or situations where players get scholarships and they're not even approved through the clearinghouse, or there's just like little stuff that are missed because they think that the scholarship is the only thing, and then you say, I commit, you sign your leverage, and that's it. So even if players do get a D1 scholarship, how can you help service the preparation for school?
Well, first, you're going to have to be academically sound, regardless of level, because there are different qualifications for Division I, Division II, and also NAIA. And then Division III, most of those schools are high academic anyway. So to get through that process, we have to make sure that the college coach can give you the offer, but until you get accepted into that school, that offer is contingent upon that. So that's why the first thing that a college coach asks you is for your transcript, because he knows right off the bat that if you can't qualify academically at that school, then it's a no-go for him. So yes, you can get that offer, but we still got to do the work and get you into admissions and get you admitted into the school. So that comes with the application, essays, which I will help your student athlete brainstorm on what those essays will be. I'm not going to write them, but I'm going to help guide that. I will proofread, and during this time, we're also building a resume. And so it's not just your athletics, it's also your academics, because that's why my company is more than athletics, because, it's about what are you doing volunteering? What clubs are you in? Do you work? We are building all of that, so then when we go into the senior year, all of that is already, and you're just cutting and pasting, like, I've done all this stuff for the last couple of years.
And I can tell you, she does help with resumes. My resume just got redone by her. My resume was awful. The format, I didn't pay attention in school.
You had good bones.
It was solid, according to her, but I was actually embarrassed to send it to her, and she sent it back to me. Just to be prepared. But when she talks about doing stuff outside of sports, I think that's the thing that makes it unique. And, it's not just about athletics. And that's the thing that if there's one message that I have, is that it's not about just athletics. And so I think that's the thing that has to be, focused on. And so you're saying that you want to focus on volunteer hours because, schools do look at that. And even outside of the school, the fact that somebody can do it and to be prepared for what that looks like in terms of servicing other people is really good. And so I think that's the beauty in what she does. And to give a hint to everybody, there is human development courses coming here shortly for athletes. And so as we work on developing the athletic, the player side, she's working on the academic side and getting you prepared for what that looks like. There's actually human development courses coming here shortly. I think you will probably launch it in April, but you'll hear more about it. And I think when she talks about her experience, you can see the passion when she speaks. And I'm glad somebody has the passion to do it, because I do not have the passion to help players as it relates to the getting into the depth of the academics and what that looks like and things like that. Everything outside of that, I'm with, but somebody has to have this passion, because it's not easy to go through it. It's not easy to, continuously check on a player, and you're dealing with so many of them. And that's why I have so much grace for, academic advisors and programs that you deal with so many athletes. It's just so hard to give every single individual what they demand in terms of where they want to go. And I'm always challenging individuals and athletes that if you play sports and you have a desire to go further, you need to put pressure on every single individual that is saying that they want to support you and help you, because that's going to help you get to that point.
And you only have a limited amount of time.
You do. And that's the thing, is the limited amount of time forces us to really just be real with ourselves. Like, I know that when it comes to academics, traction is not going to go through everybody's report card, and there's going to be checkpoints to where we want to make sure that you're doing certain things to achieve certain GPAs, but things that you do where you can have that intimacy, you can help them individually, like that's the stuff that's needed. And so if I wasn't transparent, I'd be like, oh, we do all of that. We do, but we don't. And so the niche that she does in MTA, More Than Athletics, is a niche that I would highly recommend every athlete, family, parent to get involved with. If not getting involved, at least to become educated about, so to inquire about it. And so she has a website up.
I do.
That everybody can go to and get to her. Can you share us your contacts, your website, your social media? Because she made this announcement yesterday, like
I did.
February 12th.
Yes.
And so that is love for everybody. So that's an early Valentine's gift for everybody out there, athletes that want to go and play at the next level. You got somebody that's showing love and helping you through the process. And so can you give us your contact information?
Yes. So website is morethanathletics.com. And then our social media is MTA. So it's MT Athletics, LLC. On LinkedIn, we're on Twitter, we are on Facebook and Instagram. So again, that is at MT Athletics, LLC. So, yes. And there's information on the website as well. So.
And I would highly recommend, I'm saying this on camera, that all athletes who desire, no matter if you're D1, no matter if you're D2, D3, NAIA, all athletes that are starting that transition and have a desire to go to college, the only people that I don't think need to worry about it are those athletes or children that don't want to go to college. Like those, and then if you still want to, do something, there's some value in doing it. But the niche is, if you want to go to college and you want to play any sports, or if you just want to be a student, More Than Athletics is an organization that is new. But when you look at the work and you look at what she's able to do in terms of being intimate and helping you and educating you on, it's phenomenal. And I can't speak any higher than what I'm speaking on it in terms of the value it brings. And we're an organization that's very sensitive to what we tell children to get involved with, because I just don't want to mislead anybody. Like, I don't.
Right.
And so I'm literally saying that if you have an athlete, whether it's junior or senior, more so the freshman, sophomore, and you want to learn about the recruiting process as it relates to academics and the strategy and approach to get into that level, she is the perfect, and MTA is the perfect organization to go to. And here in a little bit, I'll just be honest with the Fort Wayne market, here in a little bit, if you don't take advantage of it, there's markets outside of Fort Wayne, because she's not limited to Fort Wayne. There's markets outside of Fort Wayne that sees it and that will jump on it like crazy. So to the Fort Wayne market, you have an advantage because you have a hometown superhero right here in front of you. And so, and you're limited. You only can take so many.
Right,
so,
because this is so individualized, I'm only taking a certain number of kids, and then that's the power of Zoom, and that has been the beauty of COVID. We have figured out how to connect with people without physically being with them, and so I can service any student athlete across the country or across the world, and we will just meet virtually. And so you bring up a great point about, it's truly for any student that wants to go to college. And the goal is not Division I, because not everyone has Division I talent. That's the reality. And not everybody wants to play Division I, because there's a lot that goes with that. But if you want to play at the next level, we can definitely figure out a way to help you get there. And it just comes with the work and the time and the effort to put into it. I am a product of a kid that had to fully fund their own education, and I knew that I did not want that for my boys. And so, I know we've talked about, do you want to go D1 or do you want to go D free? And so that is the goal at the end of the day, and it is to find the best fit. And that could be at a Division II school, that could be at an NAIA school. Again, it's individualized for each student athlete.
And on Destiny's podcast, that was a couple weeks before, or a few weeks before this podcast, one of the things I did mention on that podcast was when you are trying to find the best fit, you're trying to find the best fit to maximize what you want to accomplish and who you are as an individual. And so, I tell young men all the time, and I seriously joke with them, but I mean it, is that, I'm interested in when you take that step and you go in that process of identifying what woman you want to be with. I'm heavily interested in it because to me, the recruiting process is no different as it relates to finding something or someone who can help you maximize what it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Absolutely. Like I talked about, I have like 6 priorities that I discuss with the student athlete. We will focus heavily on what your top 3 of those 6 are. And then if we find a school that happens to have 4, 5, and 6 of those categories, good. Awesome. But yes, you have to decide what's important to you, and that's different for every student.
Absolutely. So again, every athlete that has a desire to go to college and be involved with sports. Let's start with those first, because there may be some other ones that come in and creep in. But every athlete, I would highly recommend that you find, you identify her. You on social media already, so just go ahead and follow her, and just reach out to her. And if anything, just to be educated on it. So I thank you for coming on, and I'm sure we'll have you on again because there's some development that's going to happen that's going to demand you to get back on here because you're going to be a lot more known than what you are. She's 1 day old. MTA is 1 day old. So here in the future is going to be a big thing for a lot of people to be involved with. I see it being a blessing to the city. I see it being a blessing to the organization, and I see it being of tremendous value to what we're trying to build here. And what we're trying to build here is an environment where younger people can have those opportunities to step outside of this realm and really come back and to help the community grow. That's what we want to do. We want to help the community grow, but we got to get the children the best opportunity to do so. So Janae's she's gonna be awesome. She's professional. She gets it done. On a high level, it's a little bit intimidating for me, but she gets it done because she's professional. She has that experience, and it's a passion. It's a passion.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure working with you on the business side. And I think our passions equalize each other when we want to help students and educate families. And so that has been just energizing to me as well, because it's all about, helping these students get to where they want to go. And it's really about building a great team for them. That's what's going to propel them. Yep. And so I'm just so glad that I can collaborate with you and go forward.
Yeah, we're excited. And you hear me talk a lot about support staff. And when she talks about having a support staff and having a team, I like to tell every athlete and every family and anybody that's surrounding the athlete, the children are the superstars.
Yes.
Right. So you have, they're the LeBron James, the Michael Jordans, the, whatever star you want to call. We're the supporting cast.
Yes. The student athlete is my client. The parents are my customer. Yes.
Absolutely. So go ahead and follow MTA, More Than Athletics, on all the social platforms, and give her a shout out and really look into it because she is going to be of such benefit to everybody and such value. So Janae, we'll get you back on. Thank you for joining the Momentum Podcast.
Thanks for having me.